There. I'm glad you're here today. We've got a lesson that is really a story in three parts as we're going to talk about three different things that Jesus did in his ministry. And some of this is going to sound like something we've talked about before, but there's a little bit more that we can learn from this. And it's easy to overlook some of the lessons that come about. So we'll get right into it. Now, these stories come from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And the first one I want to tell is in all three of them. And it involves the time when Jesus and his disciples went kind of northwest of where they usually were. They were up on the Mediterranean Sea in that area around Tyre and Sidon, which had a lot of Jewish people, but there were also a lot of Gentile people. And it appears that one of his reasons for going to that area was not just to teach Jewish people in that area, but also to help train his disciples. And of course, he was always training his disciples wherever they went, so that makes sense. They were there, and a woman shows up, and it causes a little bit of a problem because she's not a Jewish woman. She's described as a Canaanite woman, which would mean someone living in that area who was not Jewish. And in other places, she's referred to as a Greek. And that's sort of a term that the Jews used to divide the world up into you're either Jewish or you're Greek. So in either case, Canaanite, Syrophoenician is also another term, a Greek, that would all mean the same thing to them. Well, she's there and she starts begging Jesus to help her because her daughter has a demon, is possessed by a demon, and is causing all kinds of problems for her daughter, as you can imagine. And Jesus doesn't say anything to start with. And you go, okay, that's a little bit strange. And then she keeps on, though. And then she says, please, would you help me? And he would say, well, I've come to the Jewish people. It wouldn't be right to take food away from your children and throw it to the dogs. We go, oh, that sounds kind of mean. And then she says, oh, I agree, but at the same time, when you have dogs around and the food falls from the table, it's okay for the dogs to have that food. And so he goes, okay, that's a good argument. And he says, your daughter's healed. And she goes home to find that to be the case. And people wonder, okay, it sounds like Jesus is mean and he's calling the people dogs. And but when we look into this, there are a couple of things. Because she's a Gentile woman, she's not Jewish. Um, he's really, according to the customs of the Jews of the time, he was really not supposed to be talking with her. We kind of see the same thing with him talking with the Samaritan woman. People would be kind of, hey, wait a second, you shouldn't be talking to them. Well, he does something here, though, by forcing her to commit herself. So, an interesting thing about this I was reading is that not too far away from where they were was a temple. Now, it was a pagan temple to a pretend god who supposedly could heal, but she wasn't there. She was where Jesus was. And when she saw him, she referred to him as Son of David. So she knew something about him. And she saw him as being effective, whereas going to that temple for a pretend god would not be effective. So you start seeing that, okay, this is a woman with faith. She may not be Jewish, but she recognizes who Jesus is, or at least to some extent, she understands who he is. And she doesn't get defensive when he's not answering her or when he says something about the dogs. And she persists in what she's looking for, and it really solidifies her faith. And that's one of the things we learn is that sometimes you have to say something out loud to realize just what you believe. And she certainly does that with this. Now, the part with the dogs always bothered me because when we think of people being called dogs and the Jewish people of the time referring to Gentiles as dogs, it would mean something kind of harsh. to them. Uh, but apparently, the word he uses is more like what you would refer to a pet or a dog you would carry. Now, the Jewish people, I don't think would have dogs because those, as my understanding goes, would be unclean animals. But the idea of people having pets would not be unknown to them. So it would be possible for him to make this reference and for her to understand it. And the fact that she caught on about the crumbs is brilliance because it's like she's saying that, okay, I'm not wanting to take anything away from the Jewish people, but I think you have enough left over that you could take care of me. Well, in any event, that works out well. And part of his not supposed to be talking to a Gentile woman, he's able to turn around to the people who are there and say, well, she makes a great argument, and I can't win this argument. Well, we know that Jesus can win any argument that he wants to win. And it's almost like he is, and it may very well be that he is doing this to protect the both of them. So some people get all bent out of shape if things aren't done exactly the right way. And he's allowing people to save face and say, well, okay, I guess what he did was all right. Okay, we move on from this one to another story in which a man comes to Jesus and he begs him for help. And he says, my son uh, is mute and he's deaf and he's got a demon. The demon makes him thrash around and hurts himself and tries to throw him into the fire and into the water. And I went to your disciples and they couldn't help him. He said, can you help him? And Jesus said, yeah. Well, he says a couple of things, and he refers to the faith of people. And this man is one of them, but also in his own disciples because they don't seem to have faith. And he's going, there's such a lack of faith here. And in one of the other of the Gospels that refers to this story, we find it's not just faith, but Jesus, as he's going to deal with the boy who has the demon within him, the demon recognizes Jesus, knows who he is, and is enraged because he knows he's about to be thrown out. And he throws the boy down, and Jesus said, get out, don't come back. Well, the demon has no choice. He's out, he's not coming back. And the disciples ask Jesus about this and say, okay, why couldn't we cast him out? And he tells them this kind only comes out by prayer. And you start thinking, okay, is it the lack of faith or is it the absence of prayer and all of this? But you realize it's really both. The disciples were depending on their own ability to cast out the demon. They weren't turning to God and praying about this, and that was what was necessary. What they forgot is that their faith needs to be in God, not in themselves to have the power to throw out the demons. So apparently there are some that could be thrown out more easily. This was a type that was more difficult, but in either case, prayer should be involved, no matter which kind you're dealing with. Okay, now we go to the third story. And in this one's fairly short. They're near a town named Nain. And as Jesus and his disciples are moving along, they see a funeral procession because at that time they would, when someone died, they would take the body of that person outside the town or city to bury the person. And this is moving along, and there are pallbearers carrying a plank that has the body of a young man. We don't know how young he is, but we do know that he has a mother. There are no other sons, and her husband has died. So there is no one left in the world who can take care of her. And that was just a sad reality of the way things worked in that time. And so she's upset. She has nothing to help her get by in life. And Jesus decides to put a stop to this. He's going to help in this case. And he puts his hand on the pallbearer, and they stop. And he tells the young man, get up. The man gets up, sits up, starts talking, and he presents the young man back to his mother. He has ended the funeral right there. And the people there see that and they recognize, oh, this is the kind of thing that Elijah and Elisha did. And in fact, one of the times that someone was raised from the dead, it was when the prophet Elisha was not very far from Nain. So that would have been well known in that area. And the people are talking about Jesus. Oh, this is a great prophet. They don't know everything about him, but they realize this is just not something that anybody can do. Okay, the three stories all unite in the fact that the devil is involved in all three of them, and it's easy to miss that. Of course, we know that demons are linked with the devil, but we tend to think of demons as isolated. Well, the first one, okay, can this demon issue be resolved? And with it being involving Gentiles, okay, there's a challenge to Jesus right there. Is he going to side with the Gentiles and drive away some of the Jewish people who think he shouldn't be doing that? Jesus overcomes that. In the second one, there's a demon too powerful for his disciples to cast out. Jesus deals with that and he teaches his disciples about depending on God with prayer. In the third one, the devil uses his most powerful weapon, and that's the power of death. Jesus overcomes that one as well. So when we see evil in the world, when we see bad things happen, it's easy to get caught up in that one item, that one event, and not realize there's a spiritual world out there in which there are things that do not like us and do work against us. And we can say it's the devil, but there are also the demons involved. Should that scare us? No. But what it should do is remind us that we are in a fight and we are on God's side. That's the important thing. And God will help us through whatever fight we go into. So with that, I will leave the lesson with you. I wanted to show you the tie for today. This character is now called Taz. When it was originally created, in the cartoons, they called him the Tasmanian Devil. And you'll see in this tie, he kind of blends in, so he's almost hidden if you're not looking closely. And that's what we should do when we see evil occur, is look to see where the devil is involved. That will strengthen our faith and our resolve to resist him. All right, I hope to see you next time, and you have a good day. Bye.